two brothers spent 15 years searching for the woman who saved them, only to find her dying in a run-down diner with no idea of the danger following close behind. "Kitchen's closed," Ellie called without turning, her voice hoarse from the cough slowly killing her. "We're not here for the food," replied a voice that stopped her cold. "Familiar. Impossible." She faced the two men in expensive suits, wealth and power in a place that had neither. The stockier one stepped forward, his eyes glistening. "You used to make chicken soup with extra pepper," he said, voice breaking. "You packed it the same way every time." The taller one's words shattered her world. "Hello, Mama. Hello, dear viewers. Where are you watching from? Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss this tale of love, sacrifice, and the secrets that bind us." Ellie couldn't move, couldn't breathe. The word "Mama" echoed in her skull like a prayer she'd stopped believing in years ago. The boys. Her boys. But they weren't boys anymore. "Gordy," she whispered, her eyes locked on the stockier man. Then, turning to the taller one, "Teddy?" The names felt strange on her tongue after so long. Foreign. Like calling out to ghosts. Gordy Sullivan let out a choked laugh, tears streaming down his face. "You remember. Remember." Ellie's voice cracked. "I've thought about you every single day for 15 years. She had. Every morning when she woke up. Every night when she couldn't sleep. The guilt had become a third heartbeat, steady, relentless, punishing. She'd replayed those final weeks 1,000 times, searching for signs she'd missed, something she could have done differently. The day they vanished, she'd waited behind the cafe for 3 hours. Then she'd gone to the police, who'd barely looked up from their paperwork. "Runaways," they'd said. "Happens all the time." She'd spent months searching. Posted flyers. Walked through neighborhoods asking questions. But 2 teenage boys in a city of millions? They'd disappeared like smoke. And she'd assumed the worst. Hello, dear viewers. Where are you watching from? Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss this tale of love, sacrifice, and the secrets that bind us. Ellie couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. The word "Mama" echoed in her skull like a prayer she'd stopped believing in years ago. The boys. Her boys. But they weren't boys anymore. "Gordy," she whispered, her eyes locked on the stockier man. Then, turning to the taller one, "Teddy?" The names felt strange on her tongue after so long. Foreign. Like calling out to ghosts. Gordy Sullivan let out a choked laugh, tears streaming down his face. "You remember. Remember." Ellie's voice cracked. "I've thought about you every single day for 15 years. She had. Every morning when she woke up. Every night when she couldn't sleep. The guilt had become a third heartbeat, steady, relentless, punishing. She'd replayed those final weeks 1,000 times, searching for signs she'd missed, something she could have done differently. The day they vanished, she'd waited behind the cafe for 3 hours. Then she'd gone to the police, who'd barely looked up from their paperwork. "Runaways," they'd said. "Happens all the time." She'd spent months searching. Posted flyers. Walked through neighborhoods asking questions. But 2 teenage boys in a city of millions? They'd disappeared like smoke. And she'd assumed the worst. Teddy Sullivan stood slowly, his movements careful, controlled. Even now she could see it, the way he scanned the room, checked the exits, positioned himself between Gordy and the door. Always protecting. Always alert. Some wounds never healed. They just learned to hide better. "You look tired," Gordy said softly, and the concern in his voice nearly broke her. Ellie laughed, bitter and sharp. "Tired is a luxury. I'm surviving." She gestured around the dingy diner with its broken equipment and flickering lights. "This is where the great Ellie Anderton ended up. Not quite the fairy tale, is it?" "You saved our lives," Teddy said, his jaw tight. "That's the only fairy tale that matters." Ellie shook her head. The dizziness was getting worse. She needed to sit down, but she didn't trust her legs to carry her the 3 steps to the nearest booth. "I gave you soup," she said. "That's not saving anyone." "You gave us hope," Gordy corrected. "You gave us a reason to believe someone in the world gave a damn whether we lived or died." The memory hit her hard. 2 skinny teenage boys huddled behind the dumpster, wolfing down food like they hadn't eaten in days. Gordy had been maybe 14, soft-spoken, always saying thank you. Teddy, 16, angrier, all sharp edges and suspicious eyes. She'd seen the bruises, the fear, the way they flinched when anyone came too close. She'd known something was deeply, terribly wrong. "Why didn't you say goodbye?" The question escaped before she could stop it, the one that had haunted her for 15 years. I thought she'd killed you." Gordy's face crumpled. "We couldn't. If we'd come back, even once, she would have followed us. And she would have found you." "She was obsessed," Teddy added darkly. "She knew someone was helping us. She just didn't know who." A chill ran down Ellie's spine. "Was?" The brothers exchanged a glance, heavy with meaning, dark with secrets. "That's why we're here," Teddy said quietly. "We found you just in time." The bell above the door chimed again. All 3 of them froze. A woman stood in the doorway, backlit by the streetlight outside. Tall, elegant, her silver hair swept into a flawless chignon. She wore a cream-colored coat that probably cost more than Ellie made in 6 months. Her smile was cold, surgical. "Well," she said, her voice like silk over steel. "Isn't this a touching reunion?" Gordy stepped protectively in front of Ellie. Teddy's hand moved to his jacket, a gesture so instinctive it made Ellie's blood run cold. The woman's eyes, pale blue, venomous, fixed on Ellie. "So you're the one," she said softly. "The saint of 5th Street. I've been looking for you for a very, very long time." Ellie had imagined this woman 1,000 times. A monster. A demon with claws and fangs. But Vivian Corleone looked like money and power wrapped in cashmere. "Get out," Teddy said, his voice deadly calm. Vivian laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "This is a public establishment, Theodore. I'm simply a customer." She walked to the counter with measured steps, her heels clicking against the cracked tile. Everything about her was deliberate, controlled. She ran one manicured finger along the formica surface, then examined it with theatrical disgust. My, how the mighty have fallen." Her gaze swept over Ellie. "Though I suppose you were never mighty, were you? Just a cook who couldn't mind her own business." Ellie's heart hammered against her ribs, but she lifted her chin. "Whatever you came here to say it and leave." "Oh, I have quite a lot to say." Vivian settled onto a stool, crossing her legs elegantly. "You see, you stole something from me. 2 things, actually." "We were never yours," Gordy spat. "Your father's will said otherwise. I was your legal guardian. You were 14 and 16 years old." Vivian's smile sharpened. "Which made your disappearance kidnapping. And this woman," she pointed at Ellie, "an accomplice." The words hit like a physical blow. "That's insane," Ellie said. "I didn't." "Didn't what?" "Feed them. Hide them. Help them run away." Vivian tilted her head. "I have witnesses who saw them coming and going from Rosa's cafe. I have bank records showing unusual purchases of food supplies on your salary. I have 15 years of documentation, dear Ellie. 15 years of building a case." Teddy moved forward, but Vivian held up a hand. "Before you do something stupid, Theodore, you should know I'm not here for revenge." She paused. "I'm here to make a deal." Silence. Heavy. Dangerous. "You're dying, aren't you?" Vivian's eyes locked on Ellie with clinical precision. "I can hear it in your breathing. See it in your color. Lung disease. Maybe 6 months, maybe less. Certainly not long enough to fight a legal battle." Ellie's throat tightened. She hadn't told anyone. How could this woman? I make it my business to know things, Vivian continued smoothly. Just like I know you're 3 weeks from eviction. That you have $17 in your checking account. That you're completely and utterly alone in this world. Each word was a scalpel, cutting precisely where it would hurt most. What do you want? Ellie whispered. Vivian's smile was victorious. My son's back. Go to hell, Gordy snarled. Not as children, you fool. As heirs. Vivian pulled a document from her expensive handbag, laying it on the counter. Your father's estate, which I've managed quite successfully, is worth $43 million. The will stipulates it passes to you both on your 35th birthdays. Teddy's eyes narrowed. That's in 2 months. Precisely. Vivian's fingers drummed the counter. Which means in 2 months, I lose control of everything unless you sign this document agreeing to keep me on as estate manager. 20% commission. Perfectly reasonable. We'd rather burn every dollar, Teddy said flatly. Even if it means watching your beloved mama go to prison? Vivian's voice dropped to a purr. Because that's the choice. You sign. I walk away. Ellie lives out her final months in peace. She paused. Or you refuse, I press charges, and she dies in a county jail cell, drowning in her own lungs. Ellie's vision blurred. This couldn't be happening. You can't, Gordy started. I can. I have lawyers who've waited 15 years for this. Statements. Evidence. A prosecutor who owes me favors. Vivian stood, smoothing her coat. You have 48 hours to decide. She walked to the door, then paused. Oh, and one more thing. Her smile turned cruel. I wasn't alone when I found this place. There are people outside. Watching. If Ellie runs, if she disappears, I'll know within minutes. And then all deals are off. The door chimed as she left. The silence she left behind was suffocating. Ellie's legs finally gave out. She collapsed against the counter, her whole body shaking. We're not signing anything, Teddy said immediately. We'll fight this. Get lawyers. You don't understand, Gordy interrupted, his face pale. She's not bluffing. Vivian never bluffs. Teddy turned to Ellie, and the look in his eyes, desperation mixed with something fiercer, something that made her breath catch, was almost unbearable. We'll figure this out, he said, kneeling beside her. His hand covered hers, warm and solid. I promise you, we didn't survive her once just to lose you now. But Ellie saw the truth in his face. They were trapped. And this time, soup and kindness wouldn't save anyone. Teddy locked the diner door and flipped the sign to closed. Through the grimy window, Ellie could see them, 2 figures sitting in a black sedan across the street. Watching. How long have they been following you? Gordy asked, his voice tight. I don't know. Ellie's hands trembled as she poured herself water from the tap. The glass rattled against the counter. I thought I was being paranoid. A car that showed up too often. The same man at the bus stopped 3 days in a row. She's been hunting you, Teddy said grimly. Probably for years. The moment we started making real money, started leaving a digital footprint, she would have known we'd come looking for you eventually. Ellie sank into a booth, the weight of 15 years crashing down on her. You should have stayed hidden. You should have. Lived our whole lives running? Gordy slid into the seat across from her. We tried that. It's not living. It's just slow dying. Teddy remained standing, his eyes fixed on the sedan outside. Tell us everything. When did you leave Rosa's cafe? Where did you go? The questions hurt, but Ellie understood. They were building a timeline, looking for leverage. The cafe closed 6 years after you disappeared. The owner sold it. I moved around, 3 different diners, 2 restaurants, a hospital cafeteria. She coughed, deep and rattling. Got sick 2 years ago. Couldn't afford treatment. Couldn't keep steady work. ended up here. And Vivian never approached you before tonight? Teddy pressed. Never. I didn't even know her name until you said it. Gordy pulled out a sleek laptop from a bag Ellie hadn't noticed. Within seconds, he had it open, his fingers flying across the keys. She waited, he muttered. She waited until you were weak. Isolated. Dying. The word hung in the air like poison. I'm not dying yet, Ellie said, but even she heard the lie in it. Teddy finally turned from the window, and the look on his face made her chest ache. Anger and grief and something else. Something protective and fierce that she hadn't seen directed at her in more years than she could count. We became investigators, he said quietly. Private security, corporate espionage, finding people who don't want to be found. We're good at it. We built a company from nothing. He paused. Everything we learned, every skill we developed, it was all to find you. And to make sure Vivian could never hurt us again, Gordy added. We've been documenting her crimes for 10 years. Fraud. Embezzlement. Blackmail. We have enough evidence to put her away for decades. Hope flickered in Ellie's chest. Then use it. Go to the police. She has copies of everything too, Teddy cut in. Insurance. If we move against her, she releases her case against you simultaneously. It becomes a legal war, and you'd be caught in the middle. His jaw clenched. You don't have months to fight this. Maybe not even weeks. The hope guttered out. So we're back to her deal, Ellie whispered. No. Gordy's voice was steel. There's always another way. He turned the laptop toward her. On the screen was a document, dense legal text that made her head swim. There's a clause in the will, Gordy explained. If Vivian is proven to have engaged in fraud or abuse during her guardianship, she forfeits all claim to the estate. But we need proof that holds up in court within 48 hours. We've been gathering evidence for years, Teddy said, but nothing concrete enough. Nothing that ties directly to her without reasonable doubt. What about the abuse? Ellie asked. The beatings, the starvation. Our word against hers. We were minors. Troubled, according to her documentation. She claimed we were violent, disturbed, that she tried everything to help us. Gordy's face darkened. She built a paper trail that makes her look like a saint. Ellie thought back to those afternoons behind the cafe. The bruises on Gordy's arms. The split lip Teddy tried to hide. The way they both flinched at sudden movements. I saw the evidence, she said. I saw what she did to you. Did you document it? Teddy asked. Photos? Written records? Ellie's heart sank. No. I didn't think. I was just trying to keep you alive day by day. A heavy silence fell. Gordy closed the laptop slowly. There might be another option. Dangerous, probably illegal, definitely risky. No, Teddy said immediately. We don't have a choice. There's always a choice, and I'm not letting you. Letting me what? Gordy stood, facing his brother. Risk something. You've been risking everything for me since we were kids. Maybe it's my turn. The air crackled with tension. Ellie could see the old dynamic, Teddy the protector, Gordy the protected. But they weren't children anymore. What's the option? Ellie asked quietly. Gordy hesitated, then said, Vivian keeps her real records, the actual evidence of her crimes, in a safe at her estate. Financial documents, communications, things she couldn't risk digitizing. If we could get inside, get access to that safe. That's breaking and entering, Ellie interrupted. Burglary. Like I said, probably illegal. Definitely illegal, Teddy corrected. And she'll have security. Cameras. Alarms. She's not stupid. But we're better. Gordy's eyes gleamed. We've infiltrated corporate offices with 10 times the security. We know her systems. I've been mapping her digital infrastructure for 3 years. Teddy ran a hand through his hair, pacing. Even if we get the documents, they could be ruled inadmissible. Fruit of the poisonous tree. Not if we make it look like we were never there. Not if the documents mysteriously appear through another channel. Ellie watched them strategize, these two men who used to be frightened boys. Pride and terror warred in her chest. "This is because of me," she said. "You're planning to commit crimes because I couldn't." "Because you saved us," Gordy interrupted fiercely. He knelt beside her booth, taking her hand. His grip was warm, solid, real. "Because you're the only person who ever fought for us. Let us fight for you." Tears burned Ellie's eyes. Outside, the sedan's headlights flicked on, then off. A signal. A reminder. They were running out of time. Teddy pulled out his phone, checking something. His expression darkened. Vivian just transferred a large sum to her legal team. She's moving forward, deal or no deal. "Then we move tonight," Gordy said. "Tonight." Ellie's voice cracked. "She expects us to spend days deliberating, weighing options. She thinks we're desperate and cornered." A dangerous smile crossed Teddy's face. "She's right about cornered. But desperation makes us unpredictable." Gordy was already packing up his laptop. "We'll need a car she won't recognize. Access to her security codes. A distraction." "I can create a digital distraction," Teddy said, his mind clearly racing through possibilities. "Loop the camera feeds. Create a false alert on the east side of the property while you enter from the west." "Wait." Ellie stood, gripping the table for balance. "You're talking about splitting up. That's what she wants, to divide you." Both brothers paused. "She's right," Gordy admitted. "We need all three of us together. Different skills, but one team." Teddy looked at Ellie, really looked at her. Sick, exhausted, frightened, but still standing. "Can you do this?" he asked softly. "Physically, can you handle it?" Ellie thought about the cough rattling her lungs. The dizziness. The weakness that crept into her bones more each day. Then she thought about two scared boys behind a dumpster, whispering thank you for a bowl of soup. "I'm not dead yet," she said. "Let's go steal your life back." The plan was simple, in theory. Get to Vivian's estate. Access her private office. Find the safe. Document everything they could. In execution, it was a different story. "We have 42 minutes, Teddy said, checking the monitor of his specialized tablet. The three of them were in an unmarked van, parked 2 blocks from Vivian's sprawling mansion. Her security detail makes rounds every 45 minutes. The system does a reset check at 2 a.m. exactly. Ellie stared at the estate's blueprint on the screen. "How did you get these?" "County records for the basic layout," Gordy explained, pulling on black gloves. "The rest we mapped ourselves over time. Security camera positions, blind spots, patrol patterns." Teddy handed her a small device that looked like a smartwatch. "This will vibrate if someone's approaching. Stay with Gordy at all times." "I still think you should wait in the van," Gordy said, eyeing her with concern. Ellie fastened the watch around her wrist. "And I think we've established I'm done waiting." The fierce look Teddy gave her then, half pride, half something deeper, made her heart skip. "The safe will be in her office," Teddy continued, "all business again. 2nd floor, East Wing. Based on her security purchases, it's a Reichmann TL-45 with biometric access and a backup keypad." "Which we can't crack," Gordy added. "So how do we?" Ellie began. "We don't need to crack it," Teddy said grimly. "We just need her to open it for us." He pulled out his phone, showing a text message ready to send. "When I give the signal, this goes to Vivian with a spoof number claiming to be her bank. Suspected fraud alert. I've been monitoring her accounts. She'll check immediately." "And then what?" Ellie asked. "We just wait for her to open it?" "Not exactly." Gordy lifted a small device from his bag. This is an electromagnetic relay. Once she opens the safe, it prevents it from relocking for 4 minutes. Long enough for us to get what we need. The plan was elegant, precise, terrifying. And it depended on perfect timing. Let's move, Teddy said, checking the security feeds one last time. Stay in comms contact. Anything goes wrong, we abort immediately. The night air was cool against Ellie's face as they made their way through a service entrance, slipping past a distracted guard whose security feed Teddy had looped. The grounds were immaculate, manicured hedges creating convenient shadows. Ellie's lungs burned with each careful breath. Sweat beaded on her forehead despite the chill. "You okay?" Gordy whispered, his hand steady on her elbow. "Never better," she lied. They reached a side entrance that Teddy quickly bypassed with an electronic key cloner. Inside, the mansion was silent, opulent, cold. Marble floors. Crystal chandeliers. Art that probably cost more than Ellie had made in her entire life. This was where her boys had grown up. This beautiful prison. They moved silently through the massive kitchen, past a dining room that could seat 20, up a service staircase to the second floor. Teddy led the way, Ellie in the middle, Gordy bringing up the rear, a formation they fell into without discussion. The hallway stretched before them, lined with closed doors. "Third on the right," Teddy mouthed. They were halfway there when Ellie's watch vibrated against her wrist. She froze, grabbing Gordy's arm. "Someone's coming," she whispered. Teddy gestured urgently toward a door on the left. They slipped inside what appeared to be a small sitting room, leaving the door cracked just enough to see into the hallway. A security guard passed, his footsteps deliberately quiet. Teddy waited until the footsteps faded, then checked his tablet. That wasn't scheduled. They've changed the rotation. Abort? Gordy asked. Teddy hesitated, then shook his head. We won't get another chance. Let's move. They reached Vivian's office without further incident. The door was locked, a sophisticated system that Teddy bypassed with practiced efficiency. Inside, the office was imposing. Mahogany desk. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves. A massive portrait of a stern-faced man dominated one wall. Your father? Ellie asked softly. Neither brother answered. Their focus was on a section of bookshelf that looked perfectly ordinary. Behind that, Gordy whispered, pointing. The safe is built into the wall. Teddy sent the text message, then gestured for them to hide. Ellie and Gordy crouched behind the desk while Teddy concealed himself behind heavy drapes. 3 minutes passed. 5. 8. Ellie's chest tightened with each passing moment. They were running out of time. Then, footsteps. The office door opened. Vivian swept in, wrapped in a silk robe, her face drawn with irritation. She moved directly to the bookshelf, sliding aside a panel to reveal the safe. Ellie watched as she pressed her thumb to a scanner, then entered a code. The safe clicked open. Vivian removed a folder, flipping through it, her face puzzled. Ridiculous, she muttered. Nothing's been touched. She replaced the folder, closed the safe, and left the room, the click of the door the only sound in her wake. Now, Teddy said, emerging from his hiding spot. Gordy activated the electromagnetic device, aimed it at the safe, and pressed a button. A red light blinked twice, then turned green. We have 4 minutes, he said. The safe opened with a gentle tug. Inside were neatly labeled folders, USB drives, and a small leather-bound book. Teddy and Gordy worked with practiced efficiency, photographing documents, downloading digital files to a portable device. Ellie stood guard by the door, the watch cool against her wrist, when something on Vivian's desk caught her eye. A file. With her name on it. Her hands trembled as she opened it. Medical records. Financial statements. Employment history. Photos of her walking to work, shopping for groceries, sitting alone in her tiny apartment. Guys, she whispered. She's been watching me for years. The brothers paused, looking up. That's not possible, Teddy said. We only found you 3 months ago. She couldn't have. She found me first, Ellie interrupted, holding up a document. Look. This is dated 5 years ago. Gordy crossed to her, taking the paper. His face went ashen. There's more, Ellie continued, flipping through pages. Hospital bills. Loan denials. It's like she's been systematically destroying my life. Teddy joined them, scanning the documents with growing horror. My landlord, Ellie whispered, pointing to a name. He's on her payroll. The diner owner too. They've been reporting to her. The realization hit all three of them simultaneously. Vivian hadn't been hunting Ellie just to find the brothers. She'd been torturing her. Methodically. Patiently. 4 years. My illness, Ellie said, her voice hollow. The doctors kept changing. Treatment started and stopped. Different diagnoses. She looked up at Teddy, her eyes wide. What if it wasn't just bad luck? Teddy's expression hardened into something dangerous. He turned back to the safe, pulling out folder after folder until he found what he was looking for. Medical payments, he said grimly. To doctors at your hospital. Dates correlate with your appointments. She paid them to misdiagnose me? Or to withhold treatment, Gordy said, his voice shaking with rage. To keep you sick enough to struggle, but not sick enough to die. Not until she was ready. Ellie's legs gave out. She sank into Vivian's desk chair, the world tilting around her. She wanted to watch me suffer, she whispered, and then use me as leverage against you. It's worse than that, Teddy said, holding up a document he'd found in the safe. She's been moving the money out of the trust. Millions. To offshore accounts. She needed us to sign the management papers to cover the theft before we discovered it was gone. We're not just fighting for control, Gordy realized. We're fighting for what's left. The watch on Ellie's wrist vibrated violently. Someone's coming, she gasped. Teddy quickly closed the safe. Gordy gathered their equipment. Ellie returned the file to the desk. Too late. The door opened. Vivian stood in the doorway, a gun held steadily in her hand. Behind her, 2 security guards blocked the only exit. How predictable, she said with a cold smile. Always so desperate to save her. She stepped into the room, the gun aimed directly at Ellie. Did you really think I wouldn't have sensors on my safe? That I wouldn't be monitoring your movements? She laughed softly. I've been 10 steps ahead of you for 15 years. What made you think tonight would be any different? Her eyes, calculating, merciless, moved from face to face. So now you know, she said. Everything. And it changes nothing. She gestured to one of the guards. Take them to the basement. All of them. The basement was immaculate. No cobwebs. No dust. Just polished concrete, recessed lighting, and 3 metal chairs bolted to the floor. It wasn't a basement. It was a prison. She's been planning this, Gordy whispered as the guards secured their wrists to the chairs. 4 years. The guards left, locking the heavy door behind them. The click echoed in the sterile space. Ellie fought to stay conscious. Each breath came harder than the last. The exertion, the stress. Her body was failing her faster than she'd anticipated. I'm sorry, she managed. This is my fault. Don't, Teddy said sharply. Don't you dare blame yourself. I dragged you both into this. Her voice caught on a cough, deep and wet. When she pulled her hand away, there was blood on her palm. Both brothers saw it. Their faces changed in identical ways. Fear, then determination, then something darker. We need to get you to a hospital, Gordy said, straining against his restraints. There won't be time for that, Vivian said as she entered, 2 guards flanking her. She changed into a tailored suit, as if preparing for a business meeting rather than a confrontation. The gun was gone, replaced by a tablet. How dramatic, Ellie. The blood is a nice touch. Teddy lunged against his restraints. If she dies, it will be because of you, Vivian interrupted coldly. Both of you. You brought her here. You involved her in your desperate little scheme. She pulled up a chair, sitting across from them with the casual ease of someone about to enjoy a pleasant conversation. Do you know what your father saw in me? She asked, crossing her legs. Control. Precision. The ability to make difficult decisions. He was weak, brilliant with money, useless with people, especially his own children. She sighed. I was supposed to fix you, make you worthy heirs. By beating us? Gordy spat. By starving us? By teaching you consequences, Vivian corrected. Which clearly didn't take. Look at you now, breaking into my home, violating my privacy, threatening everything I've built. Everything you stole, Teddy countered. We saw the records, the transfers. You've been bleeding the trust fund for years. Not stealing, securing. Vivian's smile was thin. Insurance against exactly this scenario. Did you really think I'd leave myself vulnerable to the whims of two ungrateful children? She stood, pacing slowly in front of them. Here's what happens now. In that safe upstairs are 3 sets of documents. 1. Papers transferring management of what remains of the trust to me, permanently. 2. A confession already bearing Ellie's signature. Quite a good forgery, if I do say so, admitting to kidnapping, child endangerment, and extortion 15 years ago. And 3. A revised will from both of you, leaving everything to me in the event of your untimely deaths. She paused, letting the implications sink in. You won't get away with this, Gordy said, but his voice lacked conviction. I already have. For 15 years. Vivian checked her watch. It's 3:17 a.m. At 6 a.m., I have a meeting with my lawyers to file everything. By noon, it will all be official. She gestured to one of the guards, who moved to stand behind Ellie. So here's your choice, boys. Sign the documents and Ellie gets medical care, proper care, finally. The condition that's been plaguing her is quite treatable with the right approach. She might have 5 good years left. Or, Vivian's voice hardened, refuse and watch her die tonight. Here. In front of you. The guard placed his hands on Ellie's shoulders, a silent threat. Teddy's face contorted with fury. You're a monster. I'm a survivor, Vivian corrected. Just like you pretend to be. She nodded to the second guard, who struck Teddy across the face. Blood trickled from his split lip, an echo of the wounds Ellie had seen on him as a teenager. Stop! Gordy shouted. Just stop. We'll sign.
Gordy, no ella whispered.
The room was starting to fade at the edges, darkness creeping in. Don't let her win. Not after everything. We don't have a choice, he said, his voice breaking. We can't watch you die. Such loyalty, Vivian murmured. It would be touching if it weren't so pathetic. Love makes you weak. It always has. She turned to the guard. Bring the documents. As the guard moved to the door, Ellie's breathing became more labored. Each inhale rattled in her chest. Each exhale was a struggle. She needs oxygen, Teddy said urgently. She needs a doctor now. After you sign, Vivian replied calmly. She won't last that long. Then I suggest you don't waste time with dramatics. The brothers exchanged a look of pure desperation. 15 years of planning, of building strength and security, and they were still powerless against this woman. Just like when they were children. The guard returned with a folder. Vivian opened it, producing a pen. Who wants to go first? She asked pleasantly. I will, Gordy said immediately.
No.
Teddy's voice was raw. Me. I'll sign first. Vivian's smile widened. Fighting over the privilege. How sweet. She moved to untie Teddy's right hand, the guard hovering close by. You know what your problem always was, Theodore. she said softly. You couldn't accept the natural order of things. In this world, there are wolves and there are sheep. Your father recognized I was a wolf. He knew you needed to become one too. I'm nothing like you, Teddy growled.
No.
You're not. Which is why you'll always lose. She placed the pen in his hand, holding the document steady. Sign. Teddy's hand trembled. Ellie tried to speak, but another coughing fit took her. This time, the blood was darker, more substantial. Hurry up, Vivian snapped, before she ruins my floor. Teddy looked at Ellie, really looked at her. Sick, dying, fighting until the end. Then at Gordy, tears streaming down his face, nodding for Teddy to sign.
I'm sorry, Teddy whispered.
And he signed. Vivian took the paper from Teddy, examining the signature with satisfaction. Wise choice, she said, moving to Gordy. Your turn. As she untied his hand, Ellie caught something in Teddy's expression. Not defeat. Something else. A calm certainty that hadn't been there before. Before my brother signs, Teddy said quietly, I have a question. Vivian sighed impatiently. Make it quick. The offshore accounts, Cayman Islands, Bermuda, Singapore. Did you really think we wouldn't find them? Vivian's smile faltered slightly. You've been looking in the wrong places. Have we? Teddy's voice changed, stronger, more confident. Grand First National, account number 44873. Barclays Zurich, account JX228. Hong Kong Mutual under the name Elena Victoria. The color drained from Vivian's face. Those are all quite empty now, Teddy continued. As of approximately 20 minutes ago.
Impossible, Vivian whispered.
You're not the only one who plans ahead. Teddy's eyes hardened. We knew you were monitoring Ellie. We knew you'd find her eventually. So we created a contingency. You're bluffing. Gordy laughed, a sound so unexpected it made everyone turn. Remember Jason, your favorite bodyguard? The one who's worked for you for 7 years. He smiled. He's been on our payroll for 5. Vivian's composure cracked. Guards, she shouted. Check the accounts now. The guards hesitated, confused by the order. Now, she screamed. One guard pulled out his phone, typing rapidly. His face changed as he read whatever was on the screen. Ma'am, he said carefully, there seems to be a problem with the... Give me that. Vivian snatched the phone, her eyes widening in disbelief as she scrolled through the information. While she was distracted, Teddy caught Ellie's eye and mouthed, 3, 2, 1. The lights went out. Complete darkness. There was a moment of confused shouting, the sound of a struggle, a thud. When the emergency lights flickered on 30 seconds later, both guards were unconscious on the floor. A third man, taller, broader, stood in the doorway, a pistol aimed steadily at Vivian. Jason, she hissed. Evening, Mrs. Corleone, he said calmly. He moved to Ellie first, cutting her restraints, catching her as she slumped forward. Easy, he murmured, supporting her weight. Medical team is upstairs. You planned this, Vivian said, her voice barely controlled as Jason freed the brothers. All of it. The break-in. Getting caught. We needed you to confess, Teddy said, rubbing his wrists. And to get Ellie inside the house, where we could help her properly. Everything's been recorded, Jason added, gesturing to a small device on his lapel. Live streamed to your security team, who now work for the Sullivan brothers, by the way. They've heard every word, every threat, every admission. Gordy knelt beside Ellie, his arm around her shoulders. Breathe slowly, he whispered. Help is coming. And that signature? Vivian looked at the paper in her hand with dawning horror. Check it again, Teddy suggested. She did. Where Teddy's name should have been was a single word. Gotcha. Vivian lunged for the gun of the nearest unconscious guard. Jason fired, a warning shot that splintered the concrete by her hand. "Don't," he said calmly. She froze, her fingers inches from the weapon. "It's over, Vivian," Teddy said, stepping between her and Ellie. "The money's gone. The evidence is secured. Your staff has abandoned you." "Impossible," she spat. "I own them. All of them." "You owned their silence," Gordy corrected, still supporting Ellie. "Until we offered them immunity." Turns out years of witnessing abuse makes people eager to talk when given the chance. Heavy footsteps sounded on the stairs. Two men in paramedic uniforms appeared in the doorway, carrying medical equipment. "Get her upstairs," Teddy ordered. "Full oxygen. Start the 4 protocol we discussed." The paramedics moved swiftly, transferring Ellie to a stretcher. Her face was ashen, lips tinged blue, but her eyes remained alert, fixed on the brothers. "You'll be fine," Gordy promised, squeezing her hand. "The best doctors in the country are waiting. The real diagnosis, the real treatment." "You knew," Ellie whispered. "You knew I was sick before you found me." "We suspected," Teddy admitted. "Vivian's digital trails led us to payments to certain doctors. It was a theory until tonight." As the paramedics prepared to move her, Ellie grabbed Teddy's wrist with surprising strength. "Don't kill her," she said hoarsely. Teddy's expression was dangerous, unreadable. "She doesn't deserve your mercy," he said quietly. "No. But you deserve your freedom." Ellie's eyes burned with intensity despite her weakness. "End this. The right way." Something shifted in Teddy's face, a decision made, a burden lifted. He nodded once, sharply. The paramedics took Ellie upstairs. Gordy moved to follow, then hesitated, torn between staying with his brother and going with the woman who had saved them. "Go," Teddy said. "I'll finish this." Gordy squeezed his shoulder, then hurried after the stretcher. Alone with Vivian and Jason, Teddy picked up her tablet from where it had fallen in the struggle. "You want to know the difference between us?" he asked, tapping the screen. "You think power means having control over others. But real power is what you have when you set people free." He turned the tablet toward her. On the screen was a bank transfer, not to an offshore account, but to a law firm specializing in prosecuting financial crimes. $50 million, he said quietly. "A bounty and legal fund for anyone with evidence against you." Vivian's face contorted with rage. "You little—" "We don't need your money," Teddy interrupted. "We built our own fortune. Clean. Legal. Based on helping people like us. Like Ellie." He pulled out his phone, dialing a number. "It's time," he said to whoever answered. Then to Jason, "The police will be here in 3 minutes. Their warrant covers the entire property, including the safe upstairs." "You can't prove anything," Vivian hissed, but her confidence was fracturing with each passing second. "It's my word against yours." Teddy smiled, not a happy expression, but something sharp and victorious. "Actually, it's your word against yours." He nodded to Jason, who pulled out a small device and pressed play. Vivian's voice filled the basement. "Did you really think I wouldn't have sensors on my safe? That I wouldn't be monitoring your movements? I've been 10 steps ahead of you for 15 years. Then, in that safe upstairs are 3 sets of documents, papers transferring management of what remains of the trust to me, permanently, a confession, already bearing Ellie's signature, quite a good forgery, a revised will from both of you, leaving everything to me in the event of your untimely deaths." Vivian's face went ashen. "The house recording system," she whispered. "It uploads to a private server." "A server we've controlled for months," Teddy confirmed. "Every threat, every admission, every crime, documented in your own voice." The sound of sirens grew in the distance. "Why now?" Vivian asked, and for the first time, there was something other than contempt in her voice. Something almost like fear. "After 15 years, why wait until now?" "Because we needed Ellie," Teddy said simply. "We needed to save her first. After everything I did to you, all the lessons I taught you about power, about control, you threw it all away for a woman who gave you soup? Vivian's laugh was bitter, incredulous. What could she possibly have offered that was worth risking everything? Teddy considered the question, his expression thoughtful. Hope, he finally said. When we had none. Dignity when you stripped us of everything else. And love, the kind that asks for nothing in return. The sirens were louder now. Blue and red lights flashed through the high basement windows. You wanted us to be wolves, Teddy continued. But Ellie showed us we could be human. That's the lesson you never understood, Vivian. True strength isn't about taking. It's about what you're willing to give. The basement door burst open. Police officers flooded in, weapons drawn. Vivian Corleone, the lead officer announced, you're under arrest for fraud, embezzlement, conspiracy to commit murder, and child endangerment. You have the right to remain silent. As they handcuffed her, Vivian maintained her composure, chin high, back straight, the perfect mask of dignified innocence. But when she passed Teddy, she paused. This isn't over, she whispered. There are other accounts, other allies, things even you haven't found. Teddy leaned closer. I'm counting on it. It'll give me something to do for the next 15 years. Her eyes widened slightly, a tiny crack in her facade. Goodbye, Vivian, he said, stepping back to let the officers lead her away. Jason appeared at his side. She's right, you know. There are still loose ends. People on her payroll we haven't identified. I know, Teddy said. He watched as Vivian was escorted to a police car, her head still high despite the handcuffs. But tonight, we've cut off the head of the snake. The rest will scatter. And Ellie, something softened in Teddy's expression. She needs us now, he said quietly. The way we needed her. Outside, the night was giving way to the first hints of dawn. Teddy paused at the threshold of Vivian's mansion, looking at the estate that had been his childhood prison. Soon it would be sold, the proceeds divided between restitution for Vivian's victims and foundations for abused children. A new beginning built from the ruins of the past. He walked away without looking back. 6 months later, Ellie stood at the window of her beachfront cottage, watching waves roll gently onto the shore. The sun warmed her face through the glass, and she breathed deeply, a full, clear breath without pain or strain. The proper diagnosis had come within hours of her rescue. The proper treatment, within days. Vivian had paid doctors to misdiagnose a treatable respiratory condition as terminal, to administer medications that worsened rather than helped. But bodies could heal, given time and care. And Ellie had been given both, in abundance. Tea's ready, Gordy called from the kitchen. He appeared with 3 steaming mugs on a tray, setting them on the coffee table with a careful precision that defined everything he did. Teddy entered from the home office, closing his laptop. The foundation just approved its 100th grant, he announced, satisfaction evident in his voice. Another safe house for kids escaping abusive homes. With an on-site kitchen teaching culinary skills, Gordy added, his eyes twinkling as he glanced at Ellie. The Sullivan Brothers Foundation, established with what remained of their father's estate, had become their life's work. Finding children like they had once been. Saving them before they needed soup behind dumpsters. Ellie smiled, but there was hesitation in it. The same hesitation that had been growing for weeks. I've been thinking, she said, joining them at the sofa. It's time for me to find my own place. Both brothers stilled. You're not fully recovered, Teddy said immediately. And this house is yours, Gordy added. We bought it for you. You've given me enough. Ellie's voice was firm, despite the emotion behind it. A new life. A future I never thought I'd have. But I need to build something of my own again. She reached into her pocket, pulling out a set of keys. There's a small cafe for sale in town. Nothing fancy. Just good food, big windows, and a kitchen where I can teach some of the kids from your foundation how to cook. Understanding dawned on their faces. You don't have to work, Teddy began. I want to, Ellie interrupted. Not because I need the money, but because it's who I am. Who I've always been. She looked between them, these men who had been boys she once saved, who had grown to save her in return. You both spent 15 years looking for me, she said softly. And now you've found me. Fixed me. Protected me. But there's a difference between being safe and being alive. Gordy nodded first, always the more intuitive of the two. When does the cafe open? Next month. Ellie smiled, relief washing over her. You'll have permanent seats at the counter, of course. With extra pepper in the soup? Teddy asked, his voice gruff with emotion he rarely showed. Always. As the afternoon sun cast long shadows across the living room, they talked about the future, the cafe, the foundation, the ongoing case against Vivian, who was facing decades in prison, her empire dismantled piece by piece. Later, as Ellie prepared dinner in the cottage's airy kitchen, insisting, as always, on cooking herself, she watched the brothers through the pass-through window. Teddy, still vigilant but learning to relax. Gordy, gentler but with newfound strength. Both healing, day by day. Family wasn't always what you were born into. Sometimes it was what you found behind a dumpster, or in a run-down diner at midnight, or in the courage to reach out when the world had taught you to withdraw. As she carried the steaming dishes to the table, Ellie realized some cycles weren't meant to be broken, only transformed. The cycle of giving, of protecting, of love that asked for nothing in return. Soup's on, she called, and the brothers came, just as they always would. Share your thoughts below and subscribe for the next Ducal Tale.